Welcome back, or welcome to Recovering Out Loud podcast, the show where we get real about mental health and addiction. If you or someone you love is struggling, please reach out to me on any social media platform. At Recovering Out Loud Pod, you are no longer alone.
Look at us fucking crossing our legs like fucking
Oh, gentlemen.
gentlemen. Oh, it's unseasonably cold at this time of year.
Hello.
I got a guy coming in after you. He's going to talk about gambling, which is good because we've been wanting to talk about gambling for a while.
Yeah.
Are you on social media? Like, do you look at social media?
Yeah.
I got this app yesterday that blocks me from going on social media because it's becoming my new addiction now. Right. And when you start creating, I'll call it like the way I do, you're always looking for inspiration, right? From people, but it's so easy to turn that into a fucking rabbit hole of Instagram. And I don't know about you, but I've never scrolled on Instagram and come away feeling better. Like, even if you get, it's really weird. Even if you get the motivational shit, the fucking, yeah, like that hit me, the spiritual, whatever, the recovery, the tip that you learned from it, I always leave putting my phone down just feeling worse after.
Yeah. I mean, it's a coping mechanism that, you know, we use and just how much exposure there is to it, right? It's become like this crutch for people in our modern society to be dealing with, right? And the biggest thing is, like, you know, when we self-seek to try to, you know, get inspiration, get, you know, ideas, get creativity, get content, what ends up happening is, you know, there's a piece of our brain that really gravitates towards the toxic comparison. Like, I'm not doing this as good as this guy. What's wrong with me?
I must be a piece of shit.
I must be inadequate, inferior, right? Or yeah, and then you end up getting caught in this like rabbit hole of you know, other things, whether it's, you know, women or clothing or money, or like, you know. And again, we got to remember, like the stuff that we see on social media, a lot of it is false.
The highlight
right?
reel.
It's a highlight reel, right? We don't really know. We see on the surface of how somebody is quote unquote living, right? Which is a huge thing, especially in recovery in the beginning, right? Because we just gravitate and fixate towards that. It's an illusion, right? We want to get into that elusive perspective that one day we're going to get to that place, and that's going to bring us this sense of happiness, right? And for a lot of folks, I mean, including myself too, it's like drugs and alcohol. It's very fleeting, momentary, unsustainable, you know. And you know, so even when you have your own business and you have your own sort of operation that you're working through and dealing with, you know, we try to gauge and gravitate towards these you know, sequences of inspiration and ideas and creativity. But what ends up happening a lot of times too is, depending on the day that you're, you know, how you wake up, or when you wake up on what side of the bed in the morning, you know, you can turn that into a negative, right? And you can sort of use that experience and create your narrative with it, right? And then, you know, you're sort of operating day to day or moment to moment based on that last sort of sequence and thought pattern that you had, and how you sort of just like, you know, so it's like, you know, for you, it's like, you know, you're seeing somebody maybe do a podcast that's a little bit different, or, you know, you see that they have a lot of viewers, a lot of followings, and you're like, well, how do I get there? And then it's like you make an impulsive decision based on emotion, right? And we know the rule with us as addicts. It's like, when we make decisions based on emotion, it typically doesn't go well, right? Because it's you know, you're trying to sort of fix a feeling, right? We fixed feelings for a long time with drugs and alcohol.
Use outside things to fix my insides.
Use outside things to fix my
insides. I think most of the time it's fear too, right? Like, you can always, I mean, it talks about it in recovery literature, but it can almost always be traced back to fear. And what does it say? It's like, I'm afraid of losing something I have or not getting something I want, right? And usually, I mean, it fluctuates between both, but I like what you said. You said that you're comparing material things, but you made a good point too, where it's like I can also compare my mental health to other people, right? Like this guy's talking about, I don't know, some journaling trick or something that he does every morning. He meditates or whatever. And then I'm like, fuck, I'm not doing that. I should be doing that. And then I'm over comparing. I'm hyper responding. I was telling you about that Modern Wisdom podcast. He did an episode of everything. He does these like yearly recaps of what he's learned from all the guests. And the guy is just fluent with his words. Like he's just the way he like self-analyzes himself and talks about what the narrative in his head is just, it's perfect. Like he is very fluent with that. And he talks about hyper responders to advice hyper responders, right? So the people that generally need to hear the advice online, so whether it's I need to be doing this or I should be doing this in my recovery, just tips to make us better, whatever, advice. The people that need to hear it generally aren't hearing it, but the people that are probably already doing it are hyper responding to the advice, and then they're overdoing it, right? So if I'm a people pleaser, and I'm online and I'm like how to not be a people pleaser or how to, be confident with yourself. I'm already doing okay in that area. I just don't think I am. So that when I see the advice come up, I'm like, oh, I gotta fix. And then I'm overcompensating for my people pleasing skills. And then now I'm being an asshole. Like that's just an example, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think that, the accessibility that we have to information like that, where it's like, okay, like who's doing the self-appraisal? Who's doing the appraisal, of how I'm doing in these areas, right? Because when I leave it to myself, I'm typically going to be the one that's going to kick the shit out of myself, and be the hardest on myself, right? So I have to ask other people in that, right? Because like you said, when I start feeling this type of way about myself, whether it's my ability to feel like I'm inadequate, whether it's, just a thought that I have, because I still have, negative thinking about myself. I still compare myself to other people. And then it's like, well, here I am trying to fix it. Well, what's a better way to access information to try to fix something? Well, I'm going to look online. Oh, online is telling me that if I pray 5 times a day, I'm going to be this different person. Or if I just, eat a specific diet or food groups, that I'm going to feel, amazing about myself. Now, truth be told, sure, it might work. But if I'm, I have to look at what is it that I'm trying to fix here. Because if it's me trying to just, change the way that I, operate with my weight and my health, and it's not a direct reflection of who I am as a person, then okay, that is something that I can do. But when I start making it about me trying to fix myself, and here is all of the things that I'm going to do in order to fix myself, that's where I start going down a dangerous path.
Yeah. And you're in like a vicious cycle, right? Yeah. Chasing the dragon.
Chasing the dragon.
We can chase the dragon without drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, and then we become obsessive, right? And, someone once told me that obsession is the direct reflection of my dissatisfaction with my current circumstances, right? So when I get into obsession, why am I being so obsessed about something? It's because I'm trying to fix a void inside of me to the point where I get obsessive over something, right? And we know that obsession for, anybody really is not a good thing. But you look at the way that we view things as people in recovery, and the way that our minds operate, and we will take things to the extreme.
Yeah, black or white,
right? To the point where it could start making my life unmanageable again, right? So like today, for guys like myself and you, for me anyways, I'll speak for myself, it's not about drugs and alcohol. It's how do I have balance in my life because I can take anything and let it become unmanageable in my life, whether it's trying to make more money, whether it's trying to be the best at something, whether it's me comparing myself to, coworkers, people in the industry, seeing what they're doing, and how do I do that, right? Like, I go through those moments all the time. I mean, shit, I just had I had experience over that last week, like seeing what, other treatment centers are doing, and how other, people I've worked with in the past, what they're doing, how they present themselves, what they're posting, what they're not posting. And I'm like, shit, I need to change how I do things. Right. And it's because, you know, I'm uncomfortable. I can be uncomfortable without getting that like approval, of like somebody else saying, hey man, like you're doing a good job, or like whatever the case is. Right. But again, that's my own headspace and my own way of how I'm viewing things, and, not feeling like I'm adequate enough. Right. And, and it's still something that comes up, and it could be a big indicator with where I'm at in recovery.
The problem for me when I think about that, because I think about two things when you're talking. I'm like, how does that affect my life negatively? And then what's the solution? Those are my two thoughts, right? And so I'll speak for myself. I agree with you. I haven't thought about using in a while. When I do, it's more so that illusory freedom that drugs gave me. Like that's what I miss, is that state of illusory freedom where I can just shut this phone off. I don't have to listen. I don't have to have responsibilities. That's what my brain tells me is good about drugs.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, again, it's that whole idea of like, how do I want to look at responsibility in my life today? Right. When I'm using, responsibility is a burden. When I'm in recovery, responsibility is a privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because, when we look at, and I think I've said this on your podcast before, it's like, I wished for responsibility. I wished for dependability. I wished for, people to like look at me and say, like, hey, this guy's a functional person in society.
To be useful.
Right?
Yeah.
And, we quickly forget that when things can get hard, when, things might not be going the way that you thought that they were going to be going, patience, all of those things. Right. So it's just, when you don't feel like that's happening, and when you add in, different elements from circumstances, it's like you put yourself in this like rat race of like negative thinking,
Mm-hmm.
Negative connotations.
Yeah, and the glass is always half empty. Right?
And the glass is always half empty, right?
You're never noticing the gifts in your life.
Yeah.
The other thing too, it does when I'm in that rumination, for me, is it doesn't allow new creativity, new positive thoughts, new service thoughts. I can't be useful if I'm constantly thinking about those things. So that, for me, that's the biggest problem, is like, if I'm comparing, comparison is the thief of joy. I always love that one. But it's like, I'm always the rat race is a good example. I can't allow new productive thoughts to come into my mind, or ideas, or service, really. How can I be of service? And then, so I want to hear how you kind of deal with this. But for me, it's like, I've been getting a lot of mileage lately out of listening to certain recovery tapes where people give talks, and also workshops, a lot about spirituality. I've been leaning into spirituality lately, like full stop, man. It's been saving my ass. And I don't know about you, but when I'm connected and I feel tapped in the morning or throughout the day, I'm talking to my higher power. I just ease and comfort. That's really what it is, right? So I've been getting a lot of mileage out of this. Like, problem comes up, emotion comes up. I'm a visual person. I'm picturing myself like grabbing the problem with my hands and just like turning it over to the universe and saying, can you work on this for me? Because I'm not qualified to work on this. Plus, I have no control over this outcome, whatever the situation may be. I'll check back in with you tomorrow. I love the metaphor of, going on an airplane, and when you check your bags, you put all your problems in that bag, and then you get on the plane. When I land, I'll come back to you, and then you have a different perspective when you come back to it. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good sort of model to understand, right? But again, it's consistency, right? Like, I pray in the morning, every day, and I try to get myself tapped in. Do I miss days? Sure. Do I, get up some days and feel like, well, what am I doing here? And I gotta do this today. Yeah. Sure. Right. But again, I have to hear other people's messages in order for me to understand that I'm not alone here. Right. So you're right. Like lots of meetings, going to meetings, hearing people's message. And it's like, even the other day I zoomed in on a meeting out in out west, and somebody's taking their 2-year medallion, and sometimes I need to hear the message of like how simple it is, right? Because in the beginning, even though it's so difficult to manage, it's just, how do I not use drugs and alcohol, right? I look at that today and say, well, that kind of felt like it was simple, but it hard, but the concept of it was simple. And then it's like, okay, so I have some time under my belt, and it's like, now, like, I'm not saying, drug addiction isn't, it's a real problem, but now I'm dealing with like what normal living people in society are dealing
Rogers.
with, right? Rogers. Yeah. I was just, I'm late for this podcast because I've been on the phone for an hour and 25 minutes trying to, navigate through some issues that happen and it's just like testing my patience. Right. So, I just having this conversation right now with you is putting me at a more ease, right? Which is important because, my head goes to like, I'm not fucking doing this. I gotta deal with this. And like, I'm sorry, but like, I'm glad that, I told him, I said, I gotta call you guys back because I have another commitment. And, before I wouldn't do things like that. I would just, it didn't matter what commitment I made to anybody, really. I would just, do my own thing because it's about me and my own self, right? And so like hearing other people's messages, like, again, it's things that I know, but I have to hear it to feel like I'm reinforced again, right? And if I'm in a place where I'm feeling like I'm spiritually content, I will take that information and be like, okay, like, this is something that's useful for me because I need to hear it. If I don't, and I'm not present with it, then I can just say it's another guy yammering about the same shit I've been hearing over and over again for the last 7 years.
The recovery
right?
sucks.
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely something that, we look at. And again, just like looking at this last year for myself, like doing a real self-appraisal, like I got a lot of work to do on myself still. Right. And, because other things come up all the time, right? The way that I handle constructive feedback, the way that I handle criticism, the way that, again, like that, not trying to compare myself to other people and what they're doing on a daily basis. There's so much, right? And, again, like I got to remember that I got to put recovery, first in every area of my life. Right. And if I don't do that, then, I'm going to, get the consequences that come with it, right? Whether they're good or they're bad, right? So, it's so important to remember that, right? And anyway, so I was listening to a guy speak the other day about, how he just got 2 years, and the father of the guy gets on stage there. It's a podium meeting, and the dad goes, after 2 years. We finally trust you. We finally gave you the key. You can go water, you can go garden and you can come take care of the house. We're going to Florida, and here's the keys, and you can go into this house now, and we trust you. 2 years, right? It's like, well, people want that right away. People think that just because they go to treatment that we can trust you again. No, but it takes consistency. You gotta walk through it, right? Like, at the end of the day, one of my colleagues, he says it best. He says, I used to look at people's mouths. It's like, now I look at their feet, right? I can't listen to someone's mouth. I got to look at their feet, watch their feet, because it's action, right? And I thought that was such a simple sort of concept, because it's like, I trust you again, right? And it's like, it just brings it back to the basic actuality of like, like, I remember having to go through that, right? And my family trusts me today, right? And that's such a huge gift, but I forget about that because I have all these other things going on in my life, right? I got to remember that my family and I have a good relationship today. My dad trusts me again. And it's I forget, right? And it's so simple, but I have to hear other people going through that experience to take it back to myself, to be like, okay, like I'm grateful for that.
What a blessing.
What a blessing.
Yeah, I got goosebumps as you were saying that, because I think I'll speak for myself, but I think most addicts and alcoholics can relate to that it reminds me too of how much I dragged my family through the mud and my wife. And it, to your point, it's like in one of my favorite parts in the recovery literature, it talks about, that gives the metaphor of the guy going underground during the tornado. And then he comes up and everything's a mess. The tornado just wiped out everything, but he comes back and he's like, what's wrong here, guys? Like, what's going on? Everything's okay. And that's what happens when we come, a lot of us, that's what happened for me anyways, especially relapsing after 8 years and coming back and going back home. I came back and I was like, okay, guys, like, why aren't you all here with my level of healing? Right.
Mhm.
But I forget, my wife was calling the police stations every night. My wife was calling the morgue. Like, those were things that were actually happening that she
Yeah.
told me after. And to your point, I forget.
Yeah.
And I just expect everyone to just kind of
Yeah.
be here with me.
Yeah.
Right. Cause I've been working on myself.
Yeah.
Let's go, guys.
We think about it too, like, the holidays coming up, Christmas is coming up, right? One of the things that we teach at work is for the clients is, we have a group called Holiday Hurdles. And a lot of people, because, it's like that entitlement is just so pertinent. And it's just, it's like, oh, my family wants me to come home for the holidays. Like, let's roll the red fucking carpet out, put all the alcohol away, lock it all up, because I'm coming home. Me, right? And it's like, I see this all the time, and it's like, people are like, yeah, my family needs me. It's like, yeah, they do need you. They need a break. That's what they need.
Yeah. It's
true. And it's like, so again, like in the beginning stages of like trying to get, clean and sober and being in treatment, it's still about you and your feelings and you're this, and you're not really, a lot of times you sort of don't take into account everybody else and how they're doing and how they're feeling and what they're going to go through. Right. Because it's a big deal. Right. And, I have families all the time that tell me, it's like, I feel so, like, I don't know how I feel. Like, I feel just like paralyzed. I don't want to feel like this, but this is what's coming up. Like, Jimmy's coming home for Christmas, and I don't know how I feel about that. I feel nervous. I feel anxious. What if he what if he takes off and goes, to the bar? So it's like, why even put your family through that kind of stuff? Yeah, like it's the holidays, but it's 1 year, right? Sacrifice, right? So that you can, the following year and the years after that, show up and be somebody that's functional, and you give yourself enough of a rapport and to give yourself enough of a track record to allow your family to have some ease and comfort and take that anxiety away, right? And I think that that's such a tried and true model. But again, you're right, it all comes back to fear. Everything comes back to fear of missing out, fear of, not belonging, fear of, and you can do the same thing with your family, where it's like those same sort of feelings resonate with you, right? So if you feel like that with your family, imagine when you're out in day to day and feeling like that when you're, talking about your professional life, where you're talking about your relationships with your friends, relationships with, girlfriends and boyfriends, like, that it magnetizes even more to the extreme, because this is not your family, right? So if you're feeling like this with family, can you imagine how you're going to feel with other people, right? That inadequacy
that you don't know.
and you don't know, right? Yeah. Or you're trying to fit in, or you're trying to feel like you're a part of, right? And I think that's the beautiful thing about recovery is, I learned early on that I need to walk through this with other people so I can feel like I belong, right? Even if it's for that specific time in my life, I'm going to lean into the program. I'm going to lean into other addicts and alcoholics trying to get better on the same sort of wavelength, on the same path. That is where I feel like I belong, right? And then as you get sober and you get connected and you're, doing this and you're helping other people and other people are helping you, you start to see it trickle into your other relationships in your life with your family, your friends, your business, your work, your romantic relationships, all of those things, right? And it's powerful.
Yeah. It's powerful. It's like building skills, right?
Yeah.
I got this question on Instagram when we were supposed to meet last time. I'm happy you brought this up, because the holidays are a stressful time for a lot of people coming back from using drinking, coming back from rehab. What's something that you tell family members, some tips? Family member has to have new alcoholic, someone struggling, come home for holidays. What's a good sort of piece of advice that you give people?
Well, I mean, it's really just about, I mean, every situation is different depending on the circumstance, but it's really just about, it goes back to the 3 C's that we tell families. You can't control it, can't cure it, didn't cause it, right? So I think a lot of times what happens with family members is they try to over micromanage or over, indulge or overcompensate, and it's just it's very difficult to tell a mom or a dad, hey, like, take a step back
Ease up.
from your son or your daughter right now, because that can put them in a cycle of like tension, and that's where like that control piece comes in, right? Because as a parent, I go through this with my kid all the time. I'm trying to control because I want the best outcome for them, right? But what I do when I'm trying to control is I inhibit their ability to really see things for themselves, and then give them the ability to have a little bit of wiggle room and grace, right? And I think that's what I tell people is, just learn how to, just be the way that it is right now, and don't make any sort of assumptions on how someone's going to be, even though their track record proves otherwise, right? And if you're going to have somebody home for the holidays, if you're going to be in a place where it's like anxiety and riddled like fear and all of these things, then why even have that in the first place? Set the proper boundary of like, we don't feel comfortable with you coming home today, and that's okay. That doesn't mean we don't love you. We don't trust you yet, right? And that's going to take some time. But if they do come home for the holidays, I just, it's just about treating them like you would always treat them, and not worry or micromanage about the little things. And again, it's out of your control what someone does, right? And the more that you try to control outcomes for other people, the more you're going to feel like expectations were broken, and it's gonna make you feel disappointed.
Yeah. I was having lunch with my mom yesterday, and she still goes to the rehab that I went to. She goes to the family program there. She loves it because she sees people. Same thing. Probably the same reason why we go to our groups is you see these people come in, and it reminds you how broken and how disheveled and how distraught you were. My mom wasn't sleeping, right? And she reminds me, like, I forget all the nights that I'm just doing my thing. Like, I'm not hurting anyone else, right? The common, you probably hear that all the time in the rehab. But she was dealing with another mom that, I don't know where my son is. I don't know what to do. And the only thing you really can do, and this is what she did for me, is like that check-in, right? I'm here when you're ready. I'm here. But the more you try to control, like you said, and at the end of the day is like when I'm controlling other people, I'm projecting my fears onto them and my inadequacies and my hole that you talked about, my void. I'm projecting it onto them. So that's the hardest part. That's the hardest part about recovery. And also, I think from the parental side is my two favorite words: let go, right? Surrender and let go.
Yeah, I mean, it's a simple concept, but how do you combat that when you're so emotional and you're living in fear? It's like, let go. I'm full of fear here. I can't let go. If I let go and something happens, boy, am I going to kick myself, right? But again, it's like if I don't let go and I try to keep pushing, what if something happens? How about that, right? So it's like, I think for family members of loved ones that are struggling with addiction, I think it's almost like a trial and error thing. It's like, well, I already tried, taking away their access to money, or kicking them out of the house,
the car,
or taking away their car, or whatever the case is, and that hasn't helped. And then I had other people say, well, I've tried to take a step back and allow the person to help to make decisions, and that hasn't worked either. So what do I do now, right? And you don't know, right? And it's tough as a family member to see that for somebody, because all you want is that person to get better, but you have no control over it. Like, you can help and be a part of the process. And what I've seen over my years of doing this is that when the family is involved with the recovery piece and learning about recovery concepts and being a part of this journey, universally, the transition is a lot more smoother. you know,
When they remain open-minded,
when they remain
teachable.
open-minded, teachable, right?
Yeah.
Just like us, right?
Yeah.
And allowing that to happen. And you know, it's tough, right? Like, you know, I had a kid the other day, his mom very, very tough on him, and understands us. The dad is a little bit less, and you know, kid somehow swindles his father to send him $50, and he goes and uses. It's like, fuck. I'm talking to the father the other day. I'm such an idiot, he says. And I'm like, no, you're not an idiot. You know, you're just, you want to give people you want to give them the benefit of the doubt because you really want to believe that he's better and changing. And it's a learning experience for you, right? And unfortunately, the only way that we really learn through things, you know, us in general, but even family, is a lot of times through trial and error.
Yeah. And pain.
Right? And pain, right? Whereas we forget about how painful the scenario is and the situation was, and we go back to that euphoric recall of like, yeah, it wasn't that bad. This wasn't that bad. That wasn't that bad. Using wasn't that bad. Drinking wasn't that bad. Stealing and lying and cheating wasn't that bad.
Is the reason for that as simple as, this is the way I like to think of it, because I've found since being in recovery that everyone has that forgetter thing, right? That is a universal trait that we all sort of share, is what I found. Forgetting how bad it was without being connected, right? It's one of the reasons we stay connected, to your point, to remember how bad it was. I like to think of it as my addict brain is just trying to get me to use, right? That's more simple for me. Do you think there's like more science behind it, or like a more...
Yeah, I mean,
are there reasons why that is?
I mean, yes, it's like, you know, you can look at the, you know, it depends on the philosophy that you're trying to teach, right? Like, a lot of people will go to the neurobiology of someone's brain, right? It's like, there's your brain and there's the addict brain, right? And that is, there's some truth to that, right? Like, because we all have a frontal cortex. We all have the middle part of our brain, which deals with the emotion, and the reptilian brain in the back, right? But a lot of time, it's like, how do you want to present this information to someone, right? Because, you know, when I learned early on was addiction isn't like some black cloud that's just like you're riding your bike along and it's like, oh my God,
it's
cloud
coming.
it's coming.
Yeah.
It's going to suck me into the vent like the clown from It. It's the shittiest version of me, and I need to learn how to make change. And yes, there are times, and there's often times in the beginning where I can't control what my brain is thinking, you know, but I can control what my actions around it, right? Like, and again, it goes back to, you know, I think about the book by The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, where, you know, we talk about how the brain is the most powerful muscle in the body because it controls our actions towards things, right? And learning how to lean in more to the physicality of your body and how your body is feeling rather than thinking about your mind, because the mind plays tricks on you and is a huge weapon, right? And you know, so to answer your question about, you know, the addict brain and, you know, that sequence, I've learned in my, you know, my recovery that a lot of times it goes back to cognitive behavioral therapy. I need to do things and feel the rewards of them later on, right? So I just need to take the action, and I need to change the behavior before my brain changes, right? I can't think into a new way of living. I have to live into a new way of thinking.
I love that. Yeah.
Right? I have to learn how to live. I have to do the action before I start to feel better, right? Because there's always this payoff, right? I think the way that our brains and the way that reality and is today is we're all looking for that payoff. That initial,
that dopamine,
instantaneous payoff, right? But when we don't get the payoff, it's like, shit, this doesn't work, right? Like, if I'm dieting and working out for a month and I don't feel like I'm losing weight, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna say, screw this, I'm not doing this anymore, right? But it's just about the discipline, and I think that, you know, the more that we're exposed to so many different services out there, I think that the discipline piece starts to become affected by that, because I'm constantly looking at all their options. What's the quickest, softest way? What's the easiest way? You know, how do I lose weight in a healthy way? Oh no, I can just, you know, take Ozempic or I can, you know, whatever, you know, the shortcut, right? And And yeah, like it's, that's just as a society is what we try to do, right?
The pill.
What's the shortest way?
Take the pill. Yeah.
Take the pill.
Yeah. It reminds me of instant gratification versus delayed gratification.
Yeah.
And recovery is all about delayed
Yeah.
gratification, training your brain.
Yeah.
I love that though, man.
Yeah.
It's like, it goes back to your watching the feet, not the mouth, right?
Yeah.
Like I can hear a million podcasts, a million speaker tapes, a million people share, but unless I'm actually doing what they're saying or doing what they're doing, hanging out with them, doing service, it's almost like you're planning, you're being proactive on your thoughts, right? Like I'm going to get ahead of this because I know those negative thoughts are coming. It's inevitable. They're going to come. What am I going to do when they come? Well, if I'm going for coffee with people in recovery, if I'm being of service, if I'm doing the things that every single fucking person tells me to do, but I don't want to, that's the thing, right? I don't want to do it, but they're all doing it and they're happy. Maybe I'll just try, right? And then it's like, yeah, you're training your brain to wait for gratification. And it's a totally different type of gratification too, right? How much better do you feel when you lose weight, putting in the work and scraping your knee and going through those hard things than when you put a needle in your body and Ozempic and it just happens overnight, right? Like,
I mean, maybe in the initial process of it is you don't feel better, but
absolutely.
it takes time. And I still struggle with doing things like that because it's like how the thought of like the whole process is so daunting sometimes,
Yeah.
depending on where your headspace is at.
Yeah.
But when you actually get through that process, you appreciate it, right? And but again, we stop at that process at some point where it's like it's too much for me, right? Like, and it goes back to, I like what you said there with the one pill, right? It's like, remember, I don't know if you remember this, but I think like maybe it was like 5-6 years ago, they were saying, oh, they're gonna come up with a pill to cure addiction. Right? A pill. So you take this pill, you're not gonna want to use drugs anymore.
Cravings gone.
Cravings gone, yeah. Right? Imagine that, right? And it's like, really? My head went to like, man, what if I take 2 or 3 of these? Yeah. That make me feel really like I really don't want to use drugs and alcohol. Yeah. So normal people don't really think like that. But yeah.
If one is good, 5 must be
if one
amazing.
Is good, 5 must be amazing, right? Yeah. So yeah, man, it's just, today it's just really about how do I navigate through the challenge that's in front of me at that particular moment, right? Like I went through this morning, like it seems like such a simple thing, but like, like if I get into the context of it, it's like, Jesus Christ, that's and again, I you cannot predict human behavior. You can't, again, and that's where I got to let go of control and allow myself to just be like, this is what it is. How do I just do the best I can in this situation, given the circumstances that I'm involved in, and, if you live like that, things will be good. And then, but also too, it's like, you want to learn how to let go and not have control of other people, places and things, but you also don't want to be a doormat either. So there's, I think, a balance with that too. And I think that that's where, if I'm dealing with a situation or I'm speaking to a friend like yourself in recovery and I say, hey, Anthony, this is what's going on for me, you will have an objective perspective around it because you don't have an emotional sort of tie to it. So you can maybe give me some sound advice, whereas I couldn't, give myself that same advice, right? I have to hear other people's perspective on things. Yeah. It doesn't matter if I know them or not.
That aren't emotionally involved. That's the key.
Emotionally involved.
That's the key.
It doesn't matter if there's somebody that's fucking has nothing and is struggling with their own addiction, right? I learned that was such a powerful thing that I learned because I always thought that I have to, talk to a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or a professional that can help me feel like I'm, how do I be less shitty, right? Or like, how do I fix myself? Fix me. I get it all the time. So, people go to you didn't fix my son, fix him. And it's like, we don't do that, right? We give people a navigational plan, but it's up to them to listen. I can't change anybody. I can only provide insight on this is what I did, or this is what I've seen, and this is what has worked for people in the past. you take what you can and you leave the rest. So, I think that's, it's super cool, man. Like, like even just sitting here, just talking, like I'm so grateful for everything that I have. And, and the holiday season is always a time where, it's a hard time for people. It's even for me, like, because I don't have a lot of family that, celebrate holidays. Like my parents, I mean, I'm Jewish, right? So my parents live in Florida, so I'm not like in the Christmas, like, dynamic of like, oh, we're going to family, you know what I mean? So, it's always a hard time for people. And it's, some years it's not easy for me either. And, you want that, right? Again, it's like, okay, well, I'm looking at my friends here and like all these things that they're doing with their kids or whatever the case is. And it's just like, I got to be grateful that, I'm alive and I'm able to sort of navigate and function in the best way I can, right? Given my set of circumstances, right? And my situation is going to be, different than somebody. Maybe there's some things that I want from that particular situation, and that's okay. But I cannot allow that to dominate the way that I think about myself, because that's not me. That's somebody else's life. That's somebody else's circumstances. That's somebody else's family, right? And it all looks good when I see it on paper, but do I really know what's happening in depthly behind that, right? And I forget about that. It's like, you want all these things, okay, but here's all the challenges that come with it, right? Not any situation that that we have. There's always going to be a challenge to it, right? Like, for you, you're married, and I'm sure like people will be like, wow, like, Anthony's so lucky, he's got, beautiful, but they don't know the challenges that you're dealing with on with a dynamic piece,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or they see your family and they're like, oh, it's a beautiful family, like, he's so lucky. It's like, yeah, he is, but you don't see the challenges that come internally with that either, right? So on paper, everything looks great, but they don't really know the specific situation or the circumstances, what's happening, right? So it's like, okay, I want these things because I'm seeing them on other people, but do I really want them? Or do I really want that situation? Because I don't know what comes with that.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, do I want the results of the good benefits, the results, the on paper stuff, like you said, or do I want the daily maintenance that it takes to have a good marriage? Because yeah, my wife and I, we've been through a lot, right?
Yeah.
And the universe life, my addiction has tested our relationship, and I think that all pain is a touchstone of spiritual growth. I truly believe that we've become stronger as a result.
I agree too.
Right?
I agree too. It's like, people are like, oh, I want kids. It's like people want that. People like the idea of it.
Mm.
The idea seems very, very gratifying and intoxicating. But it's like, are you willing to put in the work to deal with the day-to-day of that, right? I don't know, right?
Yeah.
You may think you are, but who knows, right? And I'm not trying to like say that, if you want kids, you shouldn't have kids, because this is what comes with it. I'm just saying, like, are you ready to, and you don't really know until you do it, right? But I think people really gravitate on the powerfulness of the idea of things and how they think it's gonna work, or how it ought to work. And it's like, then you just come over with a whole different bereavement of challenges. So yeah, man, I don't know.
Yeah, and then it's like resentments come with it because they're not meeting your expectations of what you thought it would be, and there's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
It also kind of goes back to, I think, for, at least, I don't know, I'll speak for myself again, but when you see someone with a nice car or a lot of money on the outside, it's the same thing. I want the results, but you don't know the work that they're putting in, for one, to get to that place, to achieve that success. I use the word success loosely, right? Monetary success. But there's also a lot of daily work that goes with keeping that, right? And one of the best pieces of advice, my dad, like, one of the best things he ever said to me was, you have to live within your means, right? Spend less than you make. It's like, that is the simple, fundamental way to like achieve financial freedom is just living within your means, right? Mm-hmm. And so, I don't know, I went through a long time of, I had this resentment towards rich people. And that was something with me. It was like, I think it went back to this comparison of, well, I don't have the Hublot watch. I saw a guy in my elevator. In my building, there's a lot of there's a Raptors player that lives in my building. So I see a lot of like really well-off people wearing really fancy watches and suits. And I assume that they're like CEOs. And I had this resentment for a long time. I'm still kind of working through that. And like, what is that about? But I think it's like, it's a resentment towards myself of not being where they are. Right,
yeah, for sure. It's easy to gravitate, but let me ask you this. Is your Hublot watch going to hug you at the end of the night and tell you that it loves you?
Yeah.
Right? Is a nice car going to come into your bedroom and give you a hug and say, "Hey, Anthony, I appreciate you"? No, right?
Yeah.
It's the people, right? In life, and these things are all, things that you have, like the comfortability of it, but it's not going to bring you sustainable happiness. Right? It's like when you talk about recovery, I think I've mentioned this before with you, but like, that the compartmentalization. It's like, I'm doing so well in these areas, but don't talk to me about my finances. Don't talk to me about my marriage. Don't talk to me about my kids. Don't talk to me about my infidelity. Those things, because look at all these other things that are going well, right? And it's like that. I love this analogy, the car and the broken windshield, right? Someone's driving along and they have a crack in their windshield, and you tell them, "Hey, you have a crack in your windshield," and they tell you, "Oh, look at the beautiful paint job on this car," and you're like, "Yeah, but you have a crack in your windshield." You're like, "Yeah, look at the tires. I just got new 20-inch rims and beautiful." Like, it's like, "Yeah, but you have a crack in your windshield." It's like, "Oh, yeah, come take a look at the inside of it. It's a beautiful car, TVs, everything." But you're swaying away from the area where it's like, you have a crack in your windshield, like that needs to be fixed. Forget about all the other things that you have. What about this thing, right? I think a lot of that we correlate in recovery with like, okay, I'm doing well in all of these areas, so don't talk to me about this piece, right? And that's where I see people fall by the wayside, is that compartmentalization. And it's happened to me too, right?
It never stays a crack too. That's the other thing. I think that's the point of the whole analogy, is like, next week your whole windshield is shattered and you're still focused on your tires.
Yeah.
Don't talk to me about my meeting attendance or my lack of step work.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I find we have to land this plane because I have somebody else in. We're going to talk about gambling, but I'm really grateful that you came here, man.
I appreciate
I love talking to you. I love talking recovery.
We'll do a nice
anytime.
Nice 1 hour, 2 hours.
It'd be nice to get, like, I have 3 microphones too, so it'd be nice to get like you, Eric, in here, and we'll just fucking talk.
Let's fucking do it. We'll get me, Eric. Yeah, we'll do it.
Talk about what's going on and how we deal with it, right?
Yeah, it's good. We gotta, we feed off of each other with that, right?
I appreciate
it. Gives us the inspiration and the hope.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks for listening. Please help us grow the channel and like, share, and subscribe for more content. The discussions and stories shared on this podcast are for informational and motivational purposes only. This content is not a substitute for professional medical advice, addiction treatment, or therapy. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, please consult a licensed physician, addiction specialist, or mental health professional. You are no longer alone.